She was only a teenager when she became queen, swept into the glittering but deadly world of Tudor court politics. Catherine Howard, cousin to the ill-fated Anne Boleyn and the fifth wife of King Henry VIII, had no idea her charm and beauty would lead to the scaffold. Her fate was not just a tragedy of love gone wrong, it was a brutal reminder of how unforgiving power could be, especially for a young girl playing queen in a lion's den. Catherine arrived at court like a breath of fresh air. She was everything the aging and embittered King Henry was not. Where he was bloated, she was slim. Where he was covered in ulcers and crushed by paranoia, she was radiant and lively. Barely 16, Catherine was plucked from obscurity and placed on the throne beside a man more than 3 decades her senior. To Henry, she was not just a wife. She was a symbol of lost youth, a trophy of vitality. He called her his rose without a thorn. But roses, as history has shown, often have hidden barbs. Catherine had grown up in the household of the Dowager Duchess of Norfolk, a noble woman with more ambition than supervision. The young girls in her care, Catherine among them, ran wild, engaging in flirtations, music, and laughter long after dark. It was during these years that Catherine had her first romantic entanglements. Henry Manox, a music teacher, and later Francis Derham, a more serious suitor who called her his fiancée and may have considered her his wife in everything but law. These youthful dalliances were not unusual for a girl of her station, but they would return to haunt her in ways no one could have imagined. Once married to Henry, Catherine played the part of queen with girlish enthusiasm. She delighted in fine gowns, dances, and the attention her position brought. But beneath the glittering facade of jewels and courtly flattery, the queen was lonely. Henry was increasingly immobile, suffering from chronic leg wounds and deep emotional instability. He was also terrifying. His past wives had been divorced, exiled, and beheaded. One wrong move, one whisper of scandal, and Catherine's fragile place in court could shatter overnight. And yet, perhaps through foolishness, perhaps through longing, she made the most fatal mistake of all. She looked for affection elsewhere. Enter Thomas Culpeper. A handsome, ambitious courtier and one of the king's favorites, Culpeper shared clandestine meetings with the queen under the cover of night, aided by Lady Jane Rochford, the same woman who had helped arrange the secret trysts between Anne Boleyn and her brother years earlier. Whether Catherine and Culpeper consummated their relationship remains debated by historians, but in the brutal logic of Tudor law, it hardly mattered. The meetings were real, the risk catastrophic. When rumors began to swirl about Catherine's past, whispers that she had not been as virginal as she claimed, an investigation was ordered. Francis Derham, sensing danger or perhaps hoping to secure a place in Catherine's new life, had come to court and was given a minor position. His presence was a spark in dry tinder. Under questioning, he admitted to their prior relationship and fatally claimed he had been promised marriage. Catherine's frantic denials began to unravel. The more she spoke, the deeper she sank. She denied marrying Derham but admitted to pre-contract, which in Tudor England was as binding as marriage itself, and made her subsequent union with the king bigamous and treasonous. Worse still, as the investigators dug deeper, the name Thomas Culpeper emerged. Letters were discovered, one in Catherine's own hand, breathless and filled with longing. "I never longed so much for anything as I do to see you," she had written. That was all it took. The girl who had danced through the halls of Hampton Court now found herself locked behind the cold stone walls of the Tower of London, awaiting death. The fall was swift and merciless. Henry, once besotted, turned to rage. The betrayal shattered him, and with it, any mercy he might have shown. Culpeper and Derham were executed first. Derham, seen as the instigator of Catherine's early sins, was hanged, drawn, and quartered, a punishment so barbaric it echoed through English nightmares for centuries. Culpeper, due to his closeness with the king, was granted the mercy of beheading. Their heads were impaled on spikes and displayed on London Bridge, a grisly warning to all who passed. Catherine remained in the tower, shivering in her cell, likely in a state of emotional collapse. On the night before her execution, she supposedly asked for the block to be brought to her so she could practice laying her head upon it. It is a haunting image. The young queen, once draped in velvet, now rehearsing her own death. She was only about 17. On February 13, 1542, Catherine Howard was led to the scaffold on Tower Green, the same spot where her cousin Anne Boleyn had died 6 years earlier. Eyewitnesses reported that she met her fate with dignity, though the tremor in her voice betrayed her youth and terror. Her final words, if recorded truthfully, were tragic in their simplicity. "I die a queen, but I would rather die the wife of Culpeper." The axe fell swiftly. The crowd was silent. Catherine's lifeless body was buried near Anne Boleyn in the chapel of St. Peter ad Vincula, beneath the tower. A lonely end for a girl who had once been crowned to such fanfare. But her death did more than end her life. It signaled a turning point in Henry's reign. The king never fully recovered from Catherine's betrayal. The bitterness and paranoia that had simmered beneath the surface now boiled over. He grew more tyrannical, more isolated, and increasingly obsessed with his legacy and line of succession. Catherine Howard's story is often told as a cautionary tale of foolish youth, but to reduce it to that is to miss the deeper tragedy. She was not a scheming seductress, but a teenager thrust into a role far beyond her understanding. Her past was used against her, her love condemned as treason, her voice lost to the machinery of a court that demanded perfection and punished even the hint of weakness. In the end, she became a symbol, not just of betrayal, but of the impossible expectations placed upon women in power, especially when that power is an illusion. Today, visitors to the Tower of London still speak of a ghostly presence in the haunted gallery, where Catherine ran screaming, begging Henry to spare her life. They say her cries echo down the centuries, a queen executed not for her ambition or treason, but for the crime of being young, beautiful, and tragically human.